views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, with the protesting and looting throughout our city, we've invited three important guests to our show. Councilman Fernando Cabrera, Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson, and an activist, Shanequa Charles, all with a unique perspective on what's going on. So let's get to it. It's an important Today's Verdict, so stay tuned. We start right now. We're here with Councilman Fernando Cabrera. Councilman, first and foremost, how are you doing today?
Well, it's been a very exhausting 12 hours, actually 16 hours. We had an experience here in my district that I consider the darkest day. We had unbelievable amount of young people that came on last night, Monday night, and they were just looting, the vandalism, setting vehicles on fire, vandalizing police cars. They were some of them had machetes, they had knives. It was something like I had never seen. I was the only elected official out there. I stayed there for large part of the evening. And even through the morning, we were still getting some looting that took place. It was devastating. We've never seen anything like it, and it's unacceptable what took place. The police were overwhelmed. They didn't have enough policemen here to handle the amount of young people. There must have been at least minimum 300 of them here, minimum.
When does it seem to you that it starts? Does it start at about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or really we're getting later into 10, 11? When does the real serious looting seem to occur?
This one, actually, I got word around 7 o'clock, and I rushed there, and they already have begun. I mean, when I got there already by 7:20, because I was in the other side of the Bronx, there were just a tremendous, I couldn't believe how much they did in that time. Literally all the way from University Avenue and Fordham Road, all across to Webster Avenue. And then you go south in the Grand Concourse and the businesses, and going all the way to 183rd. Burnside was horrendous, what took place there. I feel for the business community. We're talking about Black and brown business owners who just went through 90 days of economic hell. That's the best way I could describe it to you. And then to have the only thing that they had left was the commodities that they had inside. And to have somebody steal that, because that's exactly what happened, they stole that. I mean, how are they supposed to bounce back? Some of them had let go of their insurance just a month ago because they couldn't afford it. There was no income coming in, and there's no city help. And so today we had the mayor come in, and I asked the mayor to find funding for those who had limited insurance or had no insurance. And it's a difficult ask, because the fact is that this is the worst economic situation we have ever seen in New York City since the Great Depression.
And the Bronx always gets hit the hardest, and it always takes the Bronx the longest sometimes to come back. So it's like you get a double whammy here, and it's so unfair. You have some of the shop owners who are crying outside their shops. Tell me what you think is going to happen in the next couple of days. Do you think things are going to die down? Give us maybe a prediction if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, here's my prediction. Tonight, whoever comes out and they're not supposed to be out there, they will be arrested. the NYPD is not going to be playing. There was so much devastation here. Look, in Manhattan, my heart goes out also to business, the business community there. But the Bronx community, we have very little margins, and it's very hard to bounce back. There's few resources. And so we cannot afford to have any other night in any other part of the Bronx, not just here in the West Bronx, but in the other side of the Bronx, to be able to confront another hit like this. I'm calling upon parents. I mean, the kids are coming home with that new computers. They stole Macs. They stole phones. They have bags of clothes showing up at home. I need parents. I'm begging you, for the love of God and for the love of your children, please, please, not only talk to your children, but take action. And by that, I mean that what's your next step with your children? Because if you let this one slide, it's going to continue. It's planting the seeds of a horrible future for your kids. And they are our future.
And I know, Councilman, you're you're a very religious man. The community follows you. They listen to you. What would you say, as if you're talking to a congregation here, just how can you make the community understand the long-lasting damage that your constituents are going to reap as a result of this?
I think we have been victims of something that has occurred in our society. When I was a little kid, and I know you remember, we had a culture of honor. You honor parents, you honor your teacher, you honor your neighbor, you honor your friends. I mean, there was so much honor. And when you honor somebody, you value them. You value them for who they are. And you treat them as such, like they have worth. What took place here and what is taking place in other parts of the city is taking away the honor of George Floyd family, who are begging people to stop this. Reverend Al Sharpton is saying this is not the cause. We have heard every community leader that is worth their sense say this is not how we do it. And we got to restore that culture of honor where we honor one another.
Was there any protesting really at all in the Bronx, or it just seemed it was really basically looting?
No protest. That's the part that drives me insane. And it was so unacceptable that there was no protest. This was not connected to any cause except a group of people, talking about young people. And I love young people, man. My church is full of young people. I live for young people. Most of the funding that I give is for young people. This is what I live for. But some of them, they were opportunistic. They took opportunity of the vulnerability. See, every precinct is sending 20 policemen down to Manhattan because the need is over there. But that makes many of our precincts very, very vulnerable. And therefore, we end up paying the price.
And now, listen, I know you're a man on the move. You got a lot of places to go. Tell the viewers where you're heading. You've been Minneapolis. Where you going?
Yeah, I'm going to Minneapolis. I believe I'm the only one from the Bronx rep. So I'll be the Bronx rep who got invited. I got a personal invitation to go to the funeral of George Floyd. I wanna do what I practice. I want to practice what I preach. I want to honor the man's life. I want to honor their family. I want to give literally my respects to the family and to their friends. And I want to represent the Bronx.
And also, we don't have too much time, but you are a man of faith. In terms of the healing between the law enforcement and the community, do you have any thoughts on how this can actually happen? Because I think this is the most important thing, really.
I thank you for that question. I believe healing can take place. Let me put it in a different way. Healing must take place if we are going to move forward. I'm going to tell you, every police officer that I have spoken to, And the vast majority now, the majority of the NYPD is black and brown right now. They all tell me that was murder. You know, they hated that took place. Uh, and we got to do better. I think we are right now. I have a resolution calling upon the state of New York to stop chokeholds as a practice. Not only stop it, but it will be a class level 1 felony, violent felony. And so we have a package of other bills that we're going to pass in the next state meeting to restore trust and really help the NYPD and help the public come together.
Okay, so let's pray for tonight. Hopefully we'll have a calmer night than we did. Godspeed with you, Councilman. Have a safe and easy trip. And hopefully next time we'll see you, we'll be in the studio. Have you back.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
That was great. You take care. All right, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. We are here with Shanequa Charles, friend of the show. Shanequa has been on before, of course, in the studio. Now we're both home. Shanequa, first and foremost, how are you doing today?
So first and foremost, thank you for your honesty in the field of what you do, because it's appreciated. I'm okay today. This has been rough. It's been rough on family. It's been rough on me as an individual. Continuing to watch people who look like me die. You know, and explaining and having to explain those things to my 10-year-old who, although she is, you know, advanced for her age, still has real emotions that all of these things trigger.
How do you do it? What do you say to your child? How did you broach the topic? Because I've had a little bit of a difficulty really getting there.
So for us, this has been her reality for her entire life. You know, I've been actively involved on the ground in communities since before she was born. So quite literally, I was breastfeeding and had her on front line. So literally, she's been eating off of the movement her entire life. However, the set of circumstances that have happened recently, most recently with just back to back police killings and brutality of Black people, is beginning to weigh on her. The approaches that we use center around, number one, knowing who you are and your ancestry, and that you know, there's strength in your melanin, there's strength in who you are, and how can we use those emotions to help others, to help ourselves, and to change you know, what's happening. And I allow her to brainstorm those things so that first and foremost, her feelings are validated, but not only that, she's becoming part of the active solution creating process. That's the most important part.
So, you know, yesterday I walked on Fifth Avenue to Central Park South, you know, with a group of protesters all the way up to the Trump building, and it was very, very powerful. You've also been out. I've seen you in some of your Facebook Live. Tell me what that was like for you, being right on the front lines there.
There's so many different layers. I appreciate that question. There's so many different layers to organizing and being a part of what the potential solution is, that when the bubble up and the frustration and the relentlessness and the rebellion of people is to the point where we have what we have now, we have to understand that the problem is not isolated, right? It feels visceral. It feels when your feet are on the ground, taking in the energy of so many people around you, you know, you have to continue to do for your community and organize. So how it feels, it's hard to answer that question of how it feels. I know that it hurts because we have to do it. It hurts because people have to continue to put their bodies on the line for justice that should exist for our people equitably.
Do you think that we've turned a corner with respect to maybe the more violent protests that happened about a night or two before. There was some looting last night, but that not as much. Do you think there's going to be a resurgence of some violent protests or not really?
You know, I stay away from labels. And while I get some people have to use labels in order to put a framework on what their understanding is of what's happening, I'm not going to call folks who are rebelling violent. And the reason why I'm not going to call people who have had enough violent is because everybody is expressing how they're responding to this situation in a myriad of ways. You have folks who are calling their protests peaceful. You have folks who are rebelling because they've done everything they've been asked to do. They've knelt, they've walked, they've boycotted, they've put their hands up and been killed, they've turned their back and been killed. So I can't live in a dangerous binary of good and evil and right and wrong. What I do know is that when these things happen, we have to put even that much more focus on the why it's happening in order to get to some resolve. And if the energy is put there, in the prevention of the condition, then I think we'll be in a much better place.
And
if
you're
that makes
also
sense.
you're also looking to get involved, with respect to public offices as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, so back in February, I lost another young person from my community who quite literally was, waiting on us to find a building to put some of the programs that we've started over the last 10 years into effect 24 hours. And this young person was killed needlessly and in the street and not wanting to be there, but there because they had no other options. And so I decided to run for the assembly seat in the 78th district. It's Fordham, Kingsbridge, Crotona Prospect, parts of White Plains Road, Pelham Parkway. And the decision is a decision based on a culmination of 2.5 decades of community engagement, activism, organizing, working on city, state, and federal level legislation.
Well, we at Today's Verdict really appreciate it, Shanequa. Keep up the great work, and most importantly, please stay safe. Hopefully, the next time we see you, we'll see you in the studio.
That'd be awesome. And if you don't mind, if folks want to just support this very grassroots, community-based, community-led effort to restore our voices back to our assembly seat after 30 years, they can feel free to visit votecharlesforchange.com and figure out different ways that they can be involved in making that happen.
Good stuff. So important. All right. Thank you, Shanequa. We'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this. We're here with Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson. How are you doing today?
I am much better than yesterday. I've had a long week so far. I was very troubled by some of the violence and vandalism that we saw in the Bronx. Struggling businesses are further, struggling. Very heartbreaking to see small business owners that, have watched their businesses being destructed that way. Very heartbreaking, but I'm doing much, much better today.
Do you think we maybe turn the corner a little bit in terms of the looting? It looks like the protesting last night was a little tamer in that it didn't get very destructive. There were a few here and there, but do you think maybe we're going to see a little bit of a better situation with respect to the looting?
I do. I think that there are many New Yorkers and those that may not be New Yorkers that are reacting out of frustration and anger because we affirm Black Lives Matter, but we know for many, many African Americans, we've faced racism every day in our city, in our society, in our budgets, in our everyday life, and it's a painful reality. And when you talk about justice for George Floyd, we call up the names of so many other Black brothers and sisters who have been killed to police violence. And so I think when you saw the vandalism and the violence, it is a shifting of the narrative. It's a changing of the purpose of what we call justice. And I think some people were trying to distract us from what the goal is, which is to really ensure that all 4 officers in Minneapolis are charged in the killing of George Floyd. And there's a way to do that. You do not destroy the community that you live in and raise your family. That is not acceptable, and that's not justice.
You know, most of these businesses were mom and pop businesses on Fordham Road and in the Bronx. I mean, it could take months
Absolutely.
for them to come back.
And let's understand, many of them, I was on Burnside yesterday with the borough president, the mayor, Fernando, Gustavo, Pichado, Udelka. We were all out there. These were businesses, many of whom were already closed due to COVID because they were non-essential. An optical place was closed. So they have already lost thousands of dollars in revenue. People are not working. So to now see your storefronts broken into, all your merchandise and equipment stolen, like, that's disgusting.
You know, listen, I've had a couple of people on the show the last couple of weeks from the legislature talking a little bit about the health of the Bronxites and how COVID has really disproportionately affected, you know, my clients, your community. What are your thoughts on that? And maybe what can we do to protect them?
All true. I've been talking about health disparities since I've been in the city council. When I did the Jerome rezoning back in 2017, I put together a Jerome Public Health Task Force that's been working for 2 years that put together a series of policies around how we can develop a better health plan for the Bronx. The Not 62 campaign, all of the partners like Bronx Health Reach, Institute for Family Health, Montefiore, Bronx Community Health Network, many, Morris Heights Health Center, many who really do this work every day around food access, food justice, environmental justice, equity, fairness and quality, and supportive and stable housing, you know, how we work with our small businesses and supermarkets and grocery stores, you know, all of this, the access, the opportunity, the affordability, this has to be an ongoing plan and a partnership, but it can't be just based on COVID, because we were dealing with these issues before COVID. We are a borough in the South Bronx that takes on way too much trash and waste for the entire city of New York. That's as one example. Why is that? Why do we have the highest rates of asthma and pollution and diabetes and truck traffic, right? All of these things we've been dealing with for decades on end. So we do policies, we implement measures to change that, but we know it's going to take quite some time. So now with COVID and dealing with this pandemic that has hit us, I think it's even more important for us now to develop a Bronx-based health equity plan, because even in the Bronx, there are certain communities that have been affected by COVID in a different way. And these same communities are dealing with unstable housing, homelessness, poverty, lack of employment, underemployment, no health insurance, no primary care doctor. These are all the issues that we face every day.
Which leads to some of the violent protests, I think, just a lot of anger that's built into the community. I know that you put in your Instagram, IGTV, we have to have a real shift in the conversation, guys. What do you mean by that?
I mean that there has to be a real recognition that the Bronx has been shortchanged for far too long. We have to show Bronx residents that we not only care with our mouths and our actions, but we have to show it in budgets that we pass, resources that come to the Bronx. The Bronx was left behind in this COVID-19. It took us a while to get COVID testing sites in our districts. And that's as one example. Why is that? So it's the policies, it's the budget, it's everything coming together. Now, I will acknowledge, since I've been in the council, since Ruben's been borough president, we've made enormous progress from where we were over 10 years ago. Enormous. But for us in the Bronx, as we continue to look at new families coming in, we have many families that are not natives. They're immigrant families that are here. And a lot of times they are coming in with challenges that we have to address. And the numbers continue to move, but they're moving very, very slowly in the right direction.
Let me ask you a question. I know it's hard to answer this, but with the COVID and now the protesting, do you think the Bronx is going to take a step back? That's going to take months, a year? What do you think where are we heading is what I'm asking you, because we've got, we have had such great progress. What we've done in the Bronx. It's been wonderful the last 10 years, but have we now taken a few steps back?
Absolutely. I think we've taken a few steps back, and it's really through no fault of our own as a borough. This pandemic has hit people from all walks of life, all zip codes, all nationalities. But I think because the Bronx already faced a number of challenges around healthcare and health disparities and inequity in the healthcare system, it's taken us back. And because many Bronxites were working in industries that were essentially non-essential outside of first responders and essential workers, many of them have lost income. So they're falling behind in rent, falling behind in mortgages. There's a loss of income. So it's going to take a while to rebuild on that. And I say the healing process, because we also have to be healed emotionally too. We're traumatized by what's happened. I honestly think in terms of time frame, it's going to be the remainder of our tenure as an administration. So the remainder of 2020 as well as 2021.
You have any tips maybe to your constituents or someone who's watching now? They're feeling lonely, helpless. I know, you're a spiritual woman. Is there something that you would say to them to kind of get them through the next, 3-6 months? What would you say to them to help them out?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I always try to be an encouragement when I do my lives on social media, because I know there are many people that have fallen into depression. They feel isolated. Many of our elders, their family members and children haven't visited them in months. And there's been no human contact because we have to practice social distancing. And many people are deeply afraid to go outside. So what I say to all of my constituents, but generally all Bronxites, I fully believe that this too shall pass. We will get through this turbulent time because we have been through enough challenges as a society, as a people, so many different social service movements, the civil rights era, the LGBT movement, women's suffrage. We have been through a lot. Racism that we still deal with, systemic racism. We've been through a lot. And what I say to everybody is we are strong. We are resilient. It's okay to feel weak sometimes. Find that pastor, that leader, that advisor, that mentor that can help you, that can support you, because we need you, particularly young people. Young people have fallen into depression as well. They feel lost. They feel hopeless. But young people are our future. So when you see efforts yesterday, like young people on Fordham and Burnside that were cleaning up their community because they care, that's when we have hope. That reminds us that our work is not done. So I want people to be encouraged. We've been through a lot in the Bronx. When we had buildings burning, we had the devastation, the crack epidemic, and we've survived all of that. And here we are to proclaim that God is still good. So be encouraged, be strong, and know that we are all in this together.
Those are great words of wisdom. You've been doing the great work. Keep up the work, okay? And Vanessa, stay safe. Hopefully the next time we'll see you in the studio.
Yes, that would be great. I know we're phasing in and, over the next week or two. We're starting on Monday. So we'll see. Stay tuned. But most of all, everyone, be safe and be healthy.
That's all we have for tonight. I'd like to thank you for watching and, of course, all of our guests. If you have any questions about today's show or would like to see a future topic discussed, please email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org. From all of us at the station, always remember, know your issues. Reach a verdict. We'll see you next time.